you can draw this in Procreate. During this tutorial, we are going to create this ocean view landscape. And of course, as always, you don't need any experience with drawing or with Procreate, as I will guide you through every single step. And just know that once you have finished following this tutorial, and if you really can't get enough, if you feel the urge to follow more tutorials, then Patreon is the place to go for you. Because at Patreon, you will find a whole lot more Procreate tutorials to keep you busy. And while I'm at it, let me just thank all of the wonderful patrons, because without them, we wouldn't be able to create these videos. Oh, and also, once you have followed this tutorial and you feel the urge to share your work, please do. If you are sharing it on social media, on Instagram, just be sure to tag me in the image, not just in the description, because then I will be able to find your work and perhaps we'll see it in the next video. Just like these amazing results from my friends at Patreon. Now, if you are ready, let's get started. We have a canvas that is 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. And I have a color palette for you, which you can find through the link in the description. We will be using free Procreate brushes only, brushes that are already in the app and brushes that are in the treasure chest brush pack. If you don't have the treasure chest brush pack already, then go to freefromflow.com to get it. In the treasure chest, you'll find the brushes we'll be using during this tutorial, a lot more brushes, color palettes, and my ebook about color theory. So once you have everything you need, I think it's time to get started. The first thing we are going to do is fill our layer 1. When you go to the layer menu, you'll see layer 1 and we are going to fill it with this second color in the color palette. In the first row, let's just drag the circle onto our canvas and make it nice and pink. Then we'll add a new layer on top. So go to the layer menu, tap the plus, and now for the color, we are going to grab this color over here, the first color in the second row. And let's use the selection tool. Go to the S-shape ribbon, set it to rectangle and turn on color fill. And I will drag from the bottom left corner to the top. Well, not all the way to the top, but to about here, just above the halfway point. So somewhere around here. Then tap the S-shape ribbon to get out of there. And now let's make another new layer. Let's do that on top of layer 1. So first tap that one, then tap the plus for a new layer. And for the color, we are going to grab this one, the first color in the first row. And for the brush, we'll be using the monoline brush. I have the opacity set to 100% and the size is set to 10%. And we're going to draw a circle. Hold your pen in place to make it snap to the quick shape. And then tap one finger on the screen to make it snap to a perfectly round circle. Then drag in a color to fill your circle. And if it's too big or too small, then you just go to the Move and Transform tool. Make sure that it's set to uniform and you can use the handles to make it bigger or smaller. And if you turn on snapping over here, then you can make sure that your sun or your moon or whatever we think it is, we can make sure that it's in the center when we look at that orange vertical line. Let's place it over here and then tap the arrow again. Then let's continue and make a layer on top of the other. So first tap layer 2, then tap the plus for a new layer. And then for the color, we are going to grab this second color in the third row. And we are going to make a little hill-like shape here in the front. So we'll make a wavy shape like this. Then we'll drag in the color to fill this area, and then we'll make a new layer on top by going to the layer menu, tapping the plus, and then we'll grab this first color in the third row, and then we'll make another wavy shape in front of it. Then again, drag in the color to fill the area. And now we already have a pretty cool stylized landscape, actually, very minimalistic. But not the result I was going for, so let's continue. Let's make a new layer on top of layer 2. So first tap layer 2, then tap the plus for a new layer. And then for the color, we are going to grab this color over here, the third color in the second row. And now we are going to add some hill-like shapes near the horizon. Make a wobbly shape, go down and then go to the left. And then drag in the color to fill that shape. Let's make another one over here. A bit different with 2 wobbles. Go to the left, close the shape, and let's make another one over here. Drag in the color to fill it, and then let's make a new layer on top of this one. So tap the plus, and let's add 2 more over here. Just a shape like this. Drag in the color to fill it. And fix some of these gaps here. Make sure that it's entirely filled. And let's add a smaller one over here. Drag in the color. Now that we have these shapes, let's get started with adding texture. We are going to use the Spatula Brush, which is part of the Treasure Chest brush pack. You can find it over here. So if you don't have the pack already, go to freefromflow.com to get it. And let's get started with our sky. So we need to go to layer 1, that's the layer for our sky. And for the color, let's start with this one, the 3rd color in the 1st row. And let's make the brush nice and big. Let's go for 100%, and the opacity of the brush is at 65%. Now let's go over the top area. We are going to make lots of passes, lots of strokes to build up the texture for our sky. So we're going to do this gradually. I want the top to be nice and blue. And I want to add a little bit of this purple. Let's grab that first color in the 2nd row and go over this area. So we are going to make like a spackled gradient. Then let's move to this color, the 3rd color in the 2nd row, for a little bit of warmth over here. And I want to use that light color near the horizon. So that's the 1st color in the 1st row. Let's go over this lower area. And to make it nice and smooth, that gradient, you can go back to the previous colors like this one, that 3rd color in the 1st row. We can add some more blue here at the top. And just go over these areas until you have a nice effect. Slowly building up these colors. I'm going back to that 1st color in the 2nd row. Go over again. I think we have a nice looking gradient right now. Let's go to that sun layer, tap that layer and give it a layer mask. And now by using black, we are going to mask a part of the sun. We're going to go over that lower area and gently move up, making these horizontal strokes. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's go for 45%. And we are going to mask the lower part. And we are going to mask a little bit less at the top. So more at the bottom, less at the top, until you get this effect. And of course, if you have removed too much, then you can just switch to white. Double tap here in this area. And you can go over the top area of our sun to get a little bit of it back. Now let's move on and texture our water. We're going to approach it the same way as we did with the sky. We're going to make multiple passes of color to add the texture. First, make sure that you set the layer to alpha lock. Tap it, turn on alpha lock, because we don't want any of that texture going over our sky. Now first, let's make the brush nice and big again at 100%. And let's grab this blue over here, the 2nd color in the 2nd row. We are going to go over this lower area. And I'm making a little bit like rounded motions. A little bit like a curve, going down in the middle and up on the sides until it's starting to look more blue. Then let's switch to this color, the third color in the second row, and then we'll color this area very gently with a curve motions. And again, you can make multiple passes of color until you get a nice blend. Let's also use this color, first row, third color. So the third color in the first row. And let's go over this lower area. Just a little bit of dark blue. Then let's move to that lighter color, that first color in the first row, and add a slight touch of light here at the top. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller again. Go for 45% and add some light here near the horizon. And again, you can definitely switch back and forth between colors. For instance, I'll grab that third color in the second row again to add some more warmth. So take your time building that up. Let's also grab this one again, first color in the second row, for a little bit more purple. I think this is looking nice. Now let's move on to those hill shapes. Again, we need to turn on alpha lock for all of these layers actually. Now you can either tap them and turn on alpha lock, or you can slide with 2 fingers to the right on each layer to turn on alpha lock. Now let's start with this layer. Let's also start with this color actually, the first color in the second row. And let's go over the undersides of these hills. Adding a touch of that purple. Let's actually make the brush big again, add 100%. For some bigger spackles. Let's also grab that blue, second color in the second row. And we'll go along the underside of these hills, just slightly. Then let's grab that light color, first color in the first row. And paint a little bit on top here, just outside of the hill to get a touch of light. So you can see I'm not painting directly on these hills, a little bit above them. Then let's move to the other hills, layer 7. Again, let's grab that purplish color, first color in the second row. Go over that lower area, painting underneath, below these hills. Then let's grab the blue, second color in the second row. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller again, 45%, to go over that lower edge. And then let's grab the light color, first color in the first row again, for a touch of light here at the top. And then let's move on to these hills. Let's start with layer 4. And grab this color over here, the third color in the third row. Let's make the brush nice and big, 100% again, and go over that top area, making these circular motions, adding this texture to the top. Then let's move to layer 5. Again, let's add some of that red to the top, making these circular motions. That way we're nicely spreading this texture. Then let's also add some of this color, the second color in the second row, for a touch of blue here. And again, just like with the sky, we can definitely go back and forth between colors. So let's grab that red again, third color in the third row, and make a nice mix of these colors with this texture. Now that we have this, we are going to add extra elements to our scene. Let's first start by adding some clouds. We want our clouds to be on a layer on top of our sun layer. So let's tap this layer, tap the plus for a new one. We are going to grab this light color, first color in the first row, and we are going to use the selection tool to create these clouds. Set it to freehand and make sure that color fill is turned on. Now we're going to create some shapes with the selection tool. Just some of these random pointy shapes. It can be a little bit like wiggly, random. This looks a bit like a rhinoceros cloud. So just some random shapes. Then tap the S shape ribbon again to get out of that menu. Then add a layer mask to this layer. Tap the layer, turn on a mask, and make sure you have the Spatula Brush. Set it to black, and let's go over these clouds, blocking parts of them. Well, actually, we're blocking the entire thing, just adding that texture. So just go zigzag randomly over these clouds. And then let's also lower the opacity a bit. So tap the N here, lower the opacity to, let's say, 60% or 61. Now we are going to add a shadow or reflection on the water for these little hills. So let's duplicate that layer with the hills. Slide to the left, tap duplicate, then go for the bottom one. Then go to the Move and Transform tool and select Flip Vertical. Then move it down until, well, we're focusing on the left one right now, checking if that's touching the other hill, well, like the real hill, like the reflection is touching the real hill. Then we'll focus on these two. Let's grab the selection tool, turn off color fill, and select this one. Then go to the Move tool again, and now move this one down. You can use these little taps to move it. Then tap the Move tool again to get out of there. Then grab the selection tool again, select this one, go to the Move tool and move this one down as well. And then tap the Move tool again. Now we're going to make this reflection darker. Elf lock's already turned on, so that's great. Now let's grab this color, second color in the third row, and let's go over the reflection, making it darker. And then to make it more subtle, we are going to lower the opacity by tapping the N and setting it to 60%. And now let's do the same thing for layer 7. Let's duplicate that layer, go to the bottom one, then go to the Move tool, flip it vertical, and then move it down. Let's start with the left one. Tap the Move tool again, then the selection tool. Then we can do the right one. Use the Move tool, move it down, and then tap the Move tool again. Now we can use our brush again, paint over these reflections, making them darker, and then lower the opacity again by tapping the N, scrolling to the left, and setting it to 60%. Now let's add some palm trees to our scene. Let's go and add them. Where shall we add them? On top of layer 4 here. Let's tap the plus for a new layer. And for our brush, let's go and grab the monoline brush again. And for our color, let's use, well, we already have the correct color. We need that second color in the third row. And we are going to make a wobbly line from around here all the way to this hill. And wobbly lines are easy. That's why I like doing them. Let's go down to about here. And then we are going to make another wobbly line right next to it, not too far away, because we want a pretty thin looking palm tree. So wobble all the way down and then close the shape on each side and drag in the color. I feel like it's still a little bit thick actually. We can use the eraser to erase a part of it. And to set the eraser to the monoline brush, all you have to do is tap and hold the eraser. And now our eraser is set to the monoline brush as well, which is pretty handy because if it was set to like a soft brush, it would look weird. Or if you would have a textured brush. So let's just carve a part of that palm tree away. And it can still be wobbly. All right, once you have that, let's make another palm tree. Let's do that on a layer below this one. So first tap layer 4, then tap the plus. Go grab your brush again, the monoline brush, and we'll make this about half the size of the other one. Let's start here. Make a wobbly line again. Well, not too wobbly. And not too straight. Just right. Now let's close it. Close it at the top. Drag in the color. And I think this is about right. Now let's add the leaves for our palm tree. Let's start with the one in front, layer 13. We'll go to the selection tool, use freehand and set it to color fill. And now we are going to make some leaf shapes, and really it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make some wonky shapes. It'll add to the playfulness of this illustration. We're not going for realism here. So we'll leave over here, go down, and one over here. And then close the selection, and there you have your wonky looking palm tree leaves. And of course you can also add some extra, perhaps you want a little extra leaf over here. You can easily do that by using that selection tool. Now let's go to the other layer, the other palm tree layer, layer 14. Go to the selection tool again, and let's do this again. Make some wonky looking leaves. And of course, you can always just use undo if you don't like your leaves. You can just try again. I actually like the way these look. Let's tap the selection tool again to get out of the menu. And now let's add some plants to the foreground. We're going to do that on a layer on top of the others. Let's tap the plus. And for the color, we are going to use this fourth color in the third row. And again, we're going to use the selection tool, set it to color fill. Let's zoom out a little bit, move our canvas up. And now we are going to make like these grass-like shapes. Pointy shapes going up here. And you can close the selection each time, or you can make multiple shapes before you close it. Whatever you prefer. Let's also add some on this side. I think this is looking good. Let's tap the S shape ribbon again to get out of the menu. And now let's add some texture to our trees. Let's first go to layer 13. Let's tap it, turn on alpha lock, and let's go back to our, what was it? Our Spatula Brush. And let's also grab this red, that third color in the third row. And now let's go over this top area of our palm tree. Making circular motions, adding that texture. Now let's do the same for the other palm tree. Do make sure that you turn on alpha lock. And again, let's go over that upper left area. And now you can see that it's nicely separating from that other palm tree. That's why we have them on separate layers, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do this. Let's add a few spackles here. Let's do the same thing for the other palm tree actually. Let's go back to layer 13. Add some spackles here. And now let's make them blend with that hill a little bit more by adding a layer mask. Tap the layer, turn on mask. It's already set to black. Let's set the size to 45% and mask a little part of that bottom area. And let's do the same for layer 14. Tap it, give it a mask, and go over this lower area. For a final touch, I would like to add a little boat to our scene. But before we do that, don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you are enjoying the tutorial so far. And of course you are subscribed already, right? So I don't have to remind you about that. So yeah, we're ready to continue. Let's make a new layer on top of, well, what shall we do? Let's do it on top of this one. Layer 7 here. Let's tap the plus and let's grab a different color. We are going to use this color over here. It's the 5th color in the first row. We are going to use the selection tool again. Set to freehand and set to color fill. Let's zoom in a little bit. And let's make a triangular shape. Let's start here, go up, down, close the shape. And then let's make another triangle right next to it. Like this. Then we are going to make another layer. Let's make it on top of it. Grab another color, this 4th color in the first row, and go to the selection tool again. Let's start here, go to the front. Curve down a little bit. Then let's zoom in a little bit. Tap here and then close the shape. Now we have a nice little boat, but we want to add some texture there. So let's turn on alpha lock on these layers by sliding to the right. Let's start with the sail. Let's grab. Well, let's first just use this color, 4th color in the first row. Let's use a Spatula Brush, but let's set the brush to a smaller size. Let's grab 10% and go over the lower area. Adding some slight texture there. I feel like our boat can actually be a little bit bigger. Let's make it bigger. We can just select both of these layers by sliding to the right, then going to the Move and Transform tool. Make sure that it's set to uniform and make it a little bit bigger. I'm gonna move it up. I think this is nice. And I feel like we can move this sail a little bit closer to the other. We can also fix that by just using the selection tool, making sure that color fill is turned off, selecting that sail, and then going to the Move tool and moving it up. Then tap the Move tool again. Let's also move our little boat, the lower part, move that up a little bit by going to the Move tool again on that layer, move it up. And now we're ready on this layer to add some texture there as well. Let's use this color, the 3rd color in the first row, and add a little bit of that darker blue texture here. Now all we need is a little bit of a reflection or a shadow on the water that is cast by this boat. Let's do that on a new layer underneath our boat. So first tap layer 7 and tap the plus. Then let's grab this color, the 2nd color in the 3rd row, and use the selection tool again. Set it to color fill. Then start on this corner. Make a triangular shape. Connect it here and close it. Now let's go to the layer, turn on the layer mask, and use the Spatula Brush set to black to mask that lower half. Using lots of strokes to gently blend it in. I hope you have enjoyed following this tutorial. Let me know if you did. Be sure to share your results. You can share them on social media or in the Procreate community. You can sign up for the Procreate community for free, of course, through the weekly newsletter. If you have the Treasure Chest Brush Pack, then you are already receiving the weekly newsletter. So just follow the link in there and join us in the community. And I'll chat with you there. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.